second here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Gloria Ware, CEO and Capital Co-Pilot of Get the Bag and GTB Advisors. We work with business owners and business support organizations to get them connected to capital, financial capital, social capital, and customer capital. And here today, we are bringing you some social capital. I am so honored to have with us today Sandra Moody Gresham, who is the principal and founder of Dahan Enterprises Insurance and Financial Services. I met Sandra, well, I met her maybe virtually during the pandemic. She was presenting on the topic of insurance. This was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and was so impressed with her story. I eventually became a client. So Sandra is one of my insurance agents, and I've learned so much as a new-ish business owner. It's been 5 years, 3 years full time. A new-ish business owner from Sandra, just through my own journey of securing personal, like health insurance coverage, and then also thinking about disability insurance and life insurance, things that as business owners, especially when we're starting, we don't necessarily think about, at least not maybe the disability in life, but there's so many other components to the work. So I will ask Sandra to introduce herself and tell us more about her background, and maybe I'll ask a couple of questions related to that, and then we will go into everything you need to know as a business owner about insurance. Sandra?
Well, good afternoon, Miss Gloria and audience. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be with you. And yes, it has been a pleasure to work with you and help you achieve your goals around insurance and creating and protecting your business. So, as Gloria stated, I founded Dahan Enterprises Insurance and Financial Services, and we sit in Columbus, Ohio, just near east of downtown. And actually, this year, Dahan celebrates 25 years in business. So, been entrepreneur for quite some time. And prior to that, I was a partner in another agency as well that we operated for about 12 years. But native of Chicago, I moved to Ohio right out of grad school. And over the time, I've become an official Buckeye. Initially, I struggled with being a nut, but I'm all in now. I'm all in. But yeah, so it's Columbus and the Ohio community has been really kind to us, and this is a great place for entrepreneurship. So we've benefited from all of the myriad of resources and been able to grow a successful business from those resources and support systems. So our work really centers around all lines of insurance. We're an independent agency. We represent many carriers based on the product needs of our clients. And I think what makes us different is that we represent the client, not necessarily representing the carrier,
Yes.
right? So we get the privilege of shopping and designing insurance to really fit the needs of that business owner or that family. So it's been a joy for us to do that.
And that's what I love, what your point about representing the client and not a carrier. I think that's a big distinction to make, and that's been my experience. I feel that when we're having conversations, that you are speaking to me personally and kind of creating custom solutions for me. So I've never had the sense of the fact that you were selling me, I guess, so to speak. Right? It was very consultative.
Yeah.
And your style is very welcoming. So I just want to reiterate that maybe that week when we were talking about how to select an insurance agent or professional later on, you can talk maybe more about that.
Yeah, well, that is exactly one of our objectives, right? For consultatives, we call it consultative selling. We want to educate, inform you so that you can make an informed decision, right? And we find that many people just having those early conversations may find they're not ready or think of things that they never thought of, or we may raise questions that they hadn't thought of as a risk or exposure. But also, early in my career, I was mentored by some great leaders in the insurance industry, and several, really all of them, were committed to providing products that could accommodate our community. Oftentimes in the financial planning world, there's an income threshold. We only want to work with customers who make more than 100,000, or
Yes.
business has to make more than 10 million in revenue.
Yes.
So often, those, if you don't meet those thresholds, you may not get that same caliber of service. But we find there's a lot more people make about 30,000 or 40,000. Right.
Yes.
Many in Ohio, and certainly in our market, there's many startups, many young businesses who become big businesses. And we've had the pleasure to grow with them, right? Where they starting as a solopreneur, now they got 10 employees. So now they need benefits, or now they need key person, right? So it's that whole notion about, the rising tide lifts all boats. So clients come back, say, now I need this because I've got a $1 million contract and I need these different kinds of insurances. So that's a beautiful thing. And it is part of that growing with the client. Right.
Yes, I love to hear that. So you're invested in providing great service and information to your clients, because it becomes a win-win for everyone and for our community.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's key. And I think one of the greatest things we lack in our community is education. And then in this whole arena of financial services or insurance in particular, there are not a lot of African-American professionals. In the corporate space or in the agency space. All right. And I think the numbers is less than 10% of Black professionals in the industry. And as a female agency owner, the number gets down to less than 1%. Right. So there's not a lot of Black females that, take this route for entrepreneurship, but it's abundance of opportunities, right, in insurance. The insurance space is never going away. It's inflation proof. I like to say it touches everybody and everything. So everybody and everything is insured in some way, right? You may not even know that. And it provides livable wages, right? Long-term wages, opportunities for advancement. So part of my work also is to educate college students, young African-American college students, about the opportunities in the insurance world. And every occupation lives in an insurance company, right? From high tech to marketing to legal, medical, not just a salesperson as I represent, but every aspect of the workforce is in the insurance industry.
That's a great point. And thinking about Columbus, Ohio, and one of its major kind of industries is insurance and financial services, with Nationwide's headquartered in Columbus, Ohio. So, but I don't think that people always understand how many career options are available just within the space, and especially even in the high tech space, thinking about artificial intelligence and how that might affect insurance premium, assessment and valuations. So a great point.
Yeah.
So for you, go ahead, Tanya. For you
I was just I'm gonna make the delay. Go ahead.
Okay. No, go ahead. I'll stop. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. There may be a delay. No, I was just gonna say, we just always, wherever we share information, we always encourage the whole piece on employment opportunities, right, in the insurance industry as well.
Okay. You mentioned that you were mentored early by insurance and finance professionals. Is that what drove your interest in going into the industry?
Well, I built those relationships, but really during grad school, I attended Atlanta University, which is
Oh,
now
okay.
Clark Atlanta, for grad
Yeah.
school. And during that time, I worked in banking and worked in the trust vaults at bank. And so I learned practical in a practical way about stocks and bonds. And I was
Mm.
like, well, how do you get these? How do you get to own these? All about. So I originally started my career in sociology and psychology. And that
Oh,
experience in banking, I was like, listen, I want to learn about how do you own some stocks and bonds, right?
okay.
Um, and so pivoted from undergrad to finance, and then just decided I wanted to work in the more the financial services space. I didn't want to work in banking because I didn't feel it was as nimble and
Mhm.
moved as quickly to change. So I started in the mutual fund sales. So I did mutual fund sales pretty exclusively for about 5 years, and then started to get opportunities on the life insurance side. And then we built a partnership with a gentleman and got our firm certified as a minority business. And then opportunities start coming in the insurance space, the commercial
Mm.
insurance space. So
Oh.
we started, getting up to speed and learning that, and then having some big opportunities to do commercial insurance and then benefits insurance. So that's kind of how I migrated to insurance. But I always had my head around financial services, right? I wanted to understand how money moved, how you protect and grow and build money. Um, and so when you look at financial services, insurance is the foundation or the bedrock, right, for everything else.
Okay, thank you. I guess I had never thought of it that way. You also come from a family of entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So my dad owned a charter bus company, and he started when he was about 60, close to retirement. He also started riding Harley Davidson motorcycles during that time too. um, and then I had an aunt. Both have since passed away, but I had an aunt that owned hair salons in New York, in Queens, New York, and she was probably the first business owner that I ever knew. And
Oh,
she was strict about presentation, about showing up on time. Your
mm.
word is your bond. She taught you those foundational principles really for life,
Well,
right?
yes, yes.
So that was my Aunt B, and it was wonderful having to get to know and watch her. But then as a teenager, I worked in small businesses, right? I
Okay.
I was I didn't want to be, I called them a burger girl, which
Okay.
worked in the McDonald's, the hamburger places. And I do not negate those because, our vice president started her career working in
Right.
fast food.
Yes.
That wasn't my choice. So I preferred working in ice cream parlors. So
Okay.
ice cream
That's a
connoisseur
great
today.
choice.
Yes, but one of my first job was at an ice cream parlor that was owned by the Jolie and Robichaud family, who manufactured packaged ice cream that sold to the retail
Wow.
stores, and they were the first Black
Wow.
business in O'Hare Airport. Her
Oh my
parlor.
gosh. Okay.
Um, so, my as a young person working around successful entrepreneurs, help kind of say, hey, this ain't a bad way to make a living, right?
Yes.
But they really taught you the fundamentals. I think, as I said, not just to build business, customer service, right? How
Mhm.
you treat your customers. And then, like I said, those are life skills that, regardless
Yes.
if you're an entrepreneur or an employee, it's just being good human beings is ultimately
Yes.
what you get out of that.
Well, I think that's very important. And so, for as someone that works with and advises business support organizations, and that is kind of a hack, thinking about how do we connect more young people and aspiring or early stage businesses to established businesses. to help them to either serve as mentors, but even more kind of spending more time with them, like in action and seeing how things work. And maybe having a relationship that's not even like that's deeper than just mentorship. It's a great way. And so many successful business owners that I know have been raised in entrepreneurial families or been exposed to entrepreneurship early and picked up on things that you just learn by doing, not always by reading.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you have to experience it. You know, it said if
Yes.
you can see it, you can be it. And so
Yes.
the more opportunities that we expose young people,
Absolutely.
it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
We've had student interns in our office over the years. We were pretty consistent until we got to COVID, where we've always had some young people there because introducing them to the insurance world early. Right.
Right.
But
Yes.
yeah, I'm a strong believer we have to expose young people to opportunities and things that they may not commonly see.
Absolutely. So, well, let's get into this discussion for aspiring and current business owners, or if you are a business owner but you still have your day job, like this is a good time to start exploring and taking a deeper dive on how to set yourself up to be protecting your future and maybe even the future of your children, right? So,
Yes.
I'm going to put up a slide that Sandra has shared. And
Yeah.
so let's talk about maybe you could talk about some of the types of business insurance that business owners or aspiring business owners need to have, explore, consider, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just identified here some of the key and primary types of coverages. There are a myriad of different types of insurance companies, insurance coverages, as well as companies. But just as uniquely different as businesses are, there's also different kind of coverages. So these are some of the key coverages, but depending on what your business does, what your industry is, if you have employees or not, kind of determines what coverage is appropriate for your business. But just kind of hit each of these kind of on a high level. So general liability is the standard. Every business needs general liability. And really what that is simply it provides protection, pays damages, pays legal defense if someone is physically harmed or someone's property is damaged in the course of you carrying out your business. This could be a restaurant owner and someone gets sick from the food. It could be a contractor who's, hanging cabinets and everybody's excited about how beautiful they look, and a week later they fall while the homeowner is, washing dishes. It could be someone coming to your office and you didn't shovel snow that day, right? And they slipped and fell on the front of at the front of your building. So this is just foundational coverage, and you'll see some standards. Usually, they're asked for $1 million. $1 million is pretty much baseline these days for coverage here. And I really like to emphasize these policies. The general liability policy in particular provides you access to an attorney. So instead of you having to obtain or secure an attorney to fight on your behalf, your premiums pay for you to have legal representation.
Wow.
And that's not just true in business insurance, that's true on your auto as well, your homeowner, right? So that liability, when you see that word liability, it really tends to mean lawsuit coverage, right?
Okay.
And it provides coverage if somebody is harmed because of the work that you're doing, right? Or someone's property is damaged. Professional liability focuses on those who give advice or counsel or design. So you hear terms like errors and omissions, malpractice insurance. That's what professional liability. All those words are synonymous.
Okay.
As an insurance professional, I have to carry errors and omissions, where I made a mistake or I left out something or the customer deems I gave them poor advice. That's where professional liability comes in. You see it in the healthcare space. We see it with educators, consultants, right? There's a lot of people standing up They've given advice and counsel, right? Marketing, tech people. This is a broad space that you're seeing this coverage. Then, if you hire or employ folks, and this is W-2 employees, because I know often small businesses confuse contractors as employees. So they're not.
Right. Don't do that.
There's a distinct difference. And you're paying payroll taxes for these people.
Yeah.
So it's particularly those who have employees. Employees can sue employers, right? And so this coverage, and there's a variety of them that fit here, but one in particular, employer's practice liability. This pays claims for things like wrongful termination, ageism, sexism, racism, right? All of the incidences where employees can sue you as employer. The general liability doesn't respond to that. Professional. One key thing I would mention here is if there's a specific coverage for that particular risk, it's not going to be picked up anywhere else.
Okay.
Right? You have to have that particular coverage.
Good to know. Mm-hmm.
Yep. This also fits. There's management liability coverages here that could be if you have a board of directors. So your directors and officers liability. Directors can be held personally liable for the acts of the organization. So if you have a nonprofit boards, that's important coverage to protect those who are volunteering, essentially, to help govern, right, and make policy. So there are quite a few other employment-related coverages. But again, if you don't have any employees, you probably don't need those coverages. But as soon as you hire the first person, you want to look at adding those types of coverages. Then property insurance. So this is anything from the real estate owned to the equipment, inventory, office furniture, down to your laptop, right? So if these items are damaged, they can be replaced or repaired, right? And depending on what equipment you have, what property you use in your business, you could be out of business if some of your property was damaged. I mentioned, Gloria, I did a presentation yesterday. We had a photographer in the room. So he obviously carries his equipment to different locations, right? So you want a type of property coverage. It's called inland marine. So if you have, if you have equipment that's mobile, you want that coverage to travel wherever your items are. All right. And a photographer needed something like an inland marine kind of coverage. Another important feature in property, generally the policies offer business interruption. And so what that means is, think about if you have a retail store and there was a fire and you weren't able to access the property because it's damaged. You may have
hurricanes and with all the storms, thinking about what people are experiencing in the south.
Yes. So depending on how that damage occurred, you may be eligible for business interruption, which pays lost revenue if you cannot operate. And it pays to allow that business time to be restored and get back to operational. Years ago, we saw a manufacturing plant, I think it was in Northern Ohio, and I think it was a fire that damaged the facility, and pretty large plant, maybe a couple hundred employees. Those employees still got paid. Wow. Because of business interruption.
Oh my goodness.
So they're going to stay around and wait till that business opens again. Talk about employee loyalty, right?
Right.
But think about, you may have ongoing leases that go on that you have to pay if it's operational or not, if you got revenue or not. So business interruption is like disability for the business. Okay, a huge
Okay.
coverage.
I like that analogy.
Yes, and it's usually tied again around property coverage. And then the last one there is data breach and cyber liability. This is just being elevated because it's pervasive, right? It is impacting us daily, right? From the city of Columbus, those who may be in the Columbus area, early in July, I think is when the breach occurred, still
Wow.
being litigated and mitigated now to figure out what's going on. To just this morning, Gloria, we were sharing, we read MoneyGram was just breached, which those who may know, these are the payment centers and like the Walmart and retail stores where you do Western Union, right? So that data has now been compromised. But we're familiar with large company breaches, but the data shows that small businesses have the same risk as large businesses, right? What we find is that small businesses go out of business, right? Because they don't have the resources to do the forensics, to assess what happened, and to restore, right? So there is insurance called data breach insurance or cyber liability insurance that adds some levels of protection in this. One other thing I'd comment here, and then I think I have another slide that gives them more detail here.
Okay.
PII, the law says there are state, federal laws that mandate business owners are responsible for protection of private information of their customers. So there are penalties and fines when we don't do that. And we may have seen letters in the mail or received letters in the mail that said your data may have been compromised, right? The law says businesses have to do that. We got to communicate that to you.
Okay.
And begin to address the situation. So under that cyber and data breach umbrella, there's 3 real areas of risk, we say. Cyber risk, technology risk, and third-party risk. So the cyber risk is, the compromise of that personal identifiable information or the personal health information. So this really deals with the threats of a bad actor or a rogue employee accessing this data and using it inappropriately, right?
Okay.
Your digital systems and networks. But the other thing I raised there is the financial operational impact of those breaches, right? It's just not the incident, but how does it impact how we do business?
Okay.
Our reputation, right? The financial space around it, right? So that's often greater when you put the dollars to the table.
And so what does that look like in terms of that protection on these financial, reputation, and operational disruptions?
Well, so think about, there's likely the need for IT experts to come in and do the forensics to figure out what went wrong, where were my weaknesses and vulnerabilities in my system that allowed it to happen. Right? But then how do I restore? Right? What are the strategies to restore? And that's where these IT professionals or cyber professionals expertise come in. So cyber policies provide you those professionals.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So think about, I know insurance. I don't know technology and cyber, right? But my cyber policy gives me access to that professional. So I can kind of keep doing the work I do and let these professionals, from the premium I paid, do this work for me. All right. And then the other area I think is where we have exposure is this technology risk. So we're all looking at new systems, platforms that make us more efficient, save money, right? Enhance customer attraction and customer experience. So all businesses are doing that. right? But what risk comes in with that new technology, right? And often those are third-party vendors. And do we know and fully vet those vendors to know how do they protect your data if they're responsible for the breach, right?
Okay.
So what we have not done well is to vet and assess these third-party vendors regarding their cyber protocols.
Absolutely. We just trust them because they look like they have a solid company and nice logo, a great website,
Yeah.
and
And
good
I mean,
reviews.
exactly. That's about how we choose vendors, right?
Yeah.
And then particularly a lot around a lot of these payment platforms, right? Because PayPal, Square, if they're responsible for the breach, your customer is going to sue you. But how do those platforms protect you? We aren't asking the question. We got to read the fine print in the contracts and make them provide that information to us. All right. Because if your company is doing all it can do to mitigate risk, then every vendor you use should be doing the same thing. About 79% of the cyber breaches are due to third parties.
Wow, that's a huge number.
It's huge. Target, if we think back in the day, Target's breach was due to a third-party vendor. United Healthcare, their Change Health Management affiliate, it came through them, right? So that's where the breaches are occurring. And this
So
is
what does insurance coverage look like in terms of managing third-party risk? Does it just cover you? Should there be a breach with
yeah.
Okay.
So go to the next slide.
Right.
So I'll show you some of the coverages that the cyber liability policy offers. So it pays four different buckets is how they address claim. Each one of these has a different policy limit, right? So you might have 100,000, you might have 2 million. Right?
Okay.
So the privacy and security is really the data breach. So this is if you're sued because you fail to protect customer data.
Okay.
Right? And I mentioned a business interruption is kind of the same thing. If, as I said earlier around property, but let's say you have a website, all your transactions for payment go through your website. And now your website has been taken over by a hacker and they're asking for ransomware. Right? You can no longer do transactions, right? So you could be out of business. Business interruption replaces that lost revenue, right? Now you have to document, the carrier will ask to document what has been your past revenue. So they're going to look at bank statements for the last couple of months, what's your norms, right? They're not just going to take what you say, right? You got to confirm that. But the reputational harm, system failure, this is where the technology experts who are assigned to service you because of your policy step in, right, to help address some of those concerns. Breach response, as I mentioned, the law says every business has to communicate with their customer that a breach may have occurred. There's a cost to do that.
Yes.
Right. So dollars are allocated for you to provide that communication and notification. And this is where I mentioned those security and cyber experts.
Okay.
From legal, technology. And then the last area here is around cyber crimes. So this is a lot of money transfer. The term there, social engineering, many may know this, but not by this term. And it's really where you may get this email that impersonates an authority, could be a superior in your office that's directing you to transfer monies to a different account or an account.
Yeah.
Right? So that's called social engineering. That is a really major incident that is occurring very frequently. But in addition to all of these, the other value I believe that these policies offer is that it provides you pre and post breach consulting.
Oh,
so if you just want to have an assessment of your systems, to
Mm,
see, where our vulnerabilities may be.
okay.
You pay for that with your premium, right?
Okay. Right.
So
Yeah.
it's a huge benefit. But the other side of this is, in order to be eligible for coverage, you have to have certain protocols in place. You have
Yes.
to be doing some encryption. You have to use multi-factor authentication, right? So there's a multiple number of factors that you have to have established
Mm-hmm.
before the carriers will even allow you to get coverage. And so we can provide you that information. We work with some tech professionals that can help shore you up if that's needed. But this is becoming as common as general liability now, right? We just believe almost every business needs it. And just as the comment states there, if you do business on the internet, you're at risk. All right.
Yes. Now, hearing all of these insurances as a business owner, it sounds kind of overwhelming, right? Like,
It
wow.
could
And then
be.
as you're, going through each one of the categories, I just had like the cash registers, like ring POS system is just ching in my head. And some people, especially if you're just getting started,
Mhm.
this can be, which is why we wanted to have this session, is particularly for people that are considering business, right? Thinking about shoring up your finances and getting yourself prepared to have these coverages. What is the best approach? How should we be thinking about this above and beyond the costs as
Sure.
business owners?
Sure. Well, you have to kind of start where you are,
Right.
right? And so maybe you don't need, employer's liability because we don't have employees,
Right.
right? And as I commented, everybody needs a general liability. Maybe, you haven't stood up your website yet and you're
Mhm.
working on those platforms, but you see that, 6 months, a year down the road.
Right.
So maybe you delay,
Mhm.
and get into cyber. But as the business grows, as you have more opportunities, then you look for adding those coverages that you need.
Yes.
What we tend to see a lot is when a small business now gets a contract, and say it's a larger contract, and
Yes.
now they want them to have $1 million in cyber, or
Exactly.
Ohio Stopgap that works with workers' compensation in our state. So as these opportunities come, these contract owners would kind of tell you what you need to have, right?
Right.
You
Yeah.
grow into those based on how those opportunities are required. But minimally, it's general liability. So I will also tell you, often we get the question, how are premiums determined, right?
Yes.
So they're determined certainly by the work that you do or the industry that
Okay.
you're in, projected revenues, projected payroll, right? Those are the key, and number of employees. Those are the key drivers of premium.
Mhm.
And then
Okay.
from there, if you've had coverage before, they may want to look at past claims history. Okay,
Okay.
if you've had coverage in the past. But for a new business, you're doing projections out. And then
Okay.
you always can grow and change and modify, add coverages to your policy. And that's what we advise. Start basic. If I'm doing consulting, I need professional and I need general liability, right? If I don't have
Yeah.
an office, I don't need property.
Right. Okay.
Office and home, I will tell you that oftentimes your homeowner, condo, or renter's insurance carrier could extend some business liability, right?
Okay.
Business property on
Mhm.
that homeowner policy. So that will
Okay.
save you. So it may cost you extra $50 or $100 a year to add
Mhm.
it to your homeowner policy.
That's a pro tip.
So it depends on the nature of the business. Insurance homeowner carriers don't like a lot of traffic, right? You can't be doing retail out of your house. They don't like that,
Yeah.
right? But if it's truly like office and home and you're doing
Yeah.
consulting, you may be able to extend that onto your homeowner policy. But caveat, there's always one, right? But if
Yeah.
you're going after a contract,
Right.
with a municipality or a large private sector, they're not going to want your homeowners as proof of coverage.
Yes, yes.
Right? So you
Yes.
ultimately going to have to get to a business policy.
Someone has a question, Sandra. What if you sell on a platform like Etsy or Amazon? Do I still need insurance?
Well, good question. Who's responsible for that product? So if there's a defect in that product, right, the customer is coming to you because they purchased it from you. They don't,
Right.
it doesn't matter who your supplier or vendor is on the back end. So that protects you, right? So if you're almost either could be considered a manufacturer's rep or a retailer. Right. So again, general liability comes into play really around if there was a defective product, or if there was let's say it was a cosmetic product with lotion or creams, and that product caused harm to your customer, they're coming to you first before. And then again, how does Etsy or any of those protect you? Because the product is coming from them. So we always got to ask those questions to protect ourselves.
Thank you.
Good question.
Well, thank you. That was very helpful on the business insurance side, because often you receive your insurance policy and you see all these coverages, but you're not exactly sure, like what are the differences between each coverage? But I would say even more specifically, what do you get in return for your premiums when there is an incident, and to demystify that process.
Yep. And then it's working with that agent. I mean, you should have a relationship with your insurance professional that they understand your business so they can make the appropriate recommendations. And then they go over those things with you, right? So you feel comfortable asking questions, but also keeping them informed of how your business changes every few years, right? Because if you establish another line of service that you may not have been insured for on the existing policy, the insurance agent or carrier doesn't know that until you communicate that, right? So I think it's a two-way street. I think agents need to be reaching out, annually or every 2 years to connect with that client, but also business owners need to be reaching out.
That's true. And I think, just being guilty of this, sometimes your agents do reach out, but this is one of those things where you don't know what you don't know, and you're thinking, well, they're just trying to sell me something, or I don't, right? But this is an opportunity for us to make sure that we're being responsive to those queries, to have a conversation, and we're being informed, so it can be a two-way conversation. So they're not just asking you questions, you're asking them relevant questions as well. So
exactly.
I will.
And then these policies change over time, right? They add coverage, they take away coverage.
That's true. Yes.
And part of our job is to keep you apprised of those things, right?
Okay.
And then to learn how your business has changed. Because, when, let's say we wrote you a year ago, it was just you. Now you got 3 employees.
Exactly.
So we need to talk about how you protect yourself now with those employees. So it's a two-way street. And I know everybody's busy. Entrepreneurs are busy. But I think protecting your assets should always rank high on the list of priorities.
Okay, so thank you so much. But I do think we did say we would learn more about, as business owners, what are the types of insurances we need to consider to protect ourselves and our health. So let's switch over to what business owners need to know about providing securing personal insurances.
Yes. So I think if you slide down a couple of slides,
okay.
I think I have on
let's see.
Life insurance. Yes.
Okay.
Right here. So let me start here. About half of Americans have any life insurance. That includes employer policies or individual policies, which is why GoFundMe is so popular. But I will state, and I like this in any audience I can, GoFundMe is not life insurance.
Exactly.
It is not life insurance, and it reflects levels of irresponsibility, right? You're asking others to take care of your family when but insurance is many people don't know all that it does. It's not just about death, it's also about living. And the number one reason so few people purchase it is because they think it costs too much. And they overestimate it up to 3 to 4 times. So I will tell you, for the women who are listening, it's cheaper than getting your hair and nails done. Okay. Cheaper, than a round of golf. And to those who do happy hour on a regular, it's cheaper than a
Hello.
couple cocktails at a happy hour. Okay.
Okay.
And you have to figure out, does this make sense to invest the
Mm.
money to protect my family? Because none of us know which is going to be our last day. And we talk a lot about generational wealth, right? Life insurance is one of the foundational tools to help achieve that, right? So it's stated here, and I won't hit them all, but it's designed to protect assets and income, to eliminate debt. And you think about, if you don't make it home tonight, could my family maintain? That's the question. If your mate or your spouse, can my family maintain their same standard of living? And if the answer is I don't know or no, that denotes a need for probably some life insurance. You guys may have heard the term infinite banking or personal banking. That's really just using a life insurance product where you overfund, which means you put more money in than the cost of insurance, and it creates a savings that you have access to that money later, where down the road you can use it for retirement income, you can use it for future investments. You can get to a place and stop paying it and let the policy maintain itself. Today, many policies have what's called living benefits. So if you ever need long-term care assistance, right? So that death benefit can be drawn down, pay for coming home, adult daycare, or nursing. Now, that benefit is high.
Sandra, we're kind of losing your voice a little bit here.
Yeah, I just saw. Is that better?
Okay.
I just saw. It
Yes.
looks like we
Okay.
went out.
Yes. But can you touch on the
Okay.
point about the living benefits again?
Yeah. So many policies today have where that death benefit. Let's say you got a $500,000 policy. That's the death benefit. If someone passes away, that's what they receive. But today, the living benefits say that $500,000 can also be used, and I would have access while I'm living if certain health conditions happen or if I need long-term care, right? So you can draw down a portion of that death benefit to pay for in-home care, assisted living, long-term care needs, which, if we live long enough and don't die, you may need long-term care.
Absolutely, yes.
So that's a huge benefit. So now we can access the policy on the death benefit side while we're living. Similarly with chronic illness, certain chronic illnesses, you can draw down some of that death benefit. Funds key person succession plans. As a business owner, if you are that key person, right? So if you pass away, will their funds come into the business that allows that business time to replace you, right? Find another person, but there also may be financial obligations that you signed off on. And so that cash comes into the business to be able to settle some of those outstanding obligations. On the succession planning side, you reach a point you want to sell the business. Maybe you have a partner. There's a legal agreement, of course, to execute, but then there has to be a funding vehicle. So the life insurance can be used to fund it, either due to the disability of one of those key partners or the death of one of those key partners. So huge tool. Certainly with cash value policies, you can pull monies out for another retirement fund. As entrepreneurs, business owners, often we are behind in retirement savings because everything's been reinvested back into our businesses.
Yes.
So you can use life insurance as a tool to not only pay that death benefit, but also maybe create me some retirement incomes on the back end. It is the primary tool for generational wealth. You want your estate to be worth $1 million, get $1 million worth of life insurance. Right? We just don't have enough. And the days of just getting enough to bury us is not enough. Right? Our families deserve more.
Sandra, so I want to ask, can life insurance take care of pets left behind? And we are seeing a rise in pet ownership, and people are taking pet ownership to a new level.
Yes.
Like, right. They want to make sure these pets are taken care of in the same manner that they were taken care of by their
when they were alive.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes. You're like, you have to do the legal work that creates a trust for the benefit of, the dog or the cat or whatever.
Okay.
And then somebody is designated to manage that trust on the behalf of that pet. It happens.
You can do anything with these.
Listen, if you can name the beneficiary, change the beneficiaries. I mean, that long as you're the owner.
Good point about changing beneficiaries, though. I think we were having a conversation before about how people forget to change a beneficiary.
Yes. So you need to periodically check your beneficiaries, especially with your employer coverage. If you have life insurance benefits at work, many people sign up when they get the job, and 15, 20 years later, they're still there, and they still have, a parent that passed away. 5 years prior.
Yes.
And then it's a struggle. You want this to be easy. If you don't have a beneficiary, name an organization that you love, a nonprofit, a church, your alma mater, right? Because if you have no beneficiary, then the proceeds are subject to creditors. It goes to your state, and now creditors have access. Okay. So if you can't think of anybody, you find an organization that you support and you care about. So that they receive those proceeds.
Okay. You spoke of structuring the business as a way to cover your personal needs.
Well, so if you think about, and this is where tax professionals come in, right? Okay. But if you think about you as the owner and your employees pretty much want some of the same things, right? We want a good retirement. We want good health insurance, right? And we want a safe and culturally supportive place to work, right? So my business can pay for my health insurance. And if my business pays for my health insurance, now it's a tax deductible business expense, which if I pay for it personally, maybe not, right? Similarly with life insurance, disability, if it's a corporate employee benefit or an executive benefit, now it's possibly a tax deductible benefit from the company, right? So it just depends on which checkbook the dollars are paid from, right? And this is where you work with your tax professional, but also you create corporate minutes and corporate notes that says the company is going to provide executive benefits to the key employee. Right? Then you define what those corporate benefits are. And certainly your insurance programs can be one of those.
Thank you. You mentioned as a follow-on to that, someone maybe that is considering bringing on employees, but one of the factors that they are exploring is, or maybe they have employees and they're not offering group insurance, but you as the business owner have insurance, thinking about if you offer group insurance, you can then also cover yourself as part of that group insurance.
Yes. So I think where you're going, if you want to offer like group medical,
yes,
right? The small businesses that have 2 people on payroll, can
Yeah.
offer a group plan. Right.
Right.
So you're going to get richer benefits. You can now add
Mhm.
dental, vision, disability, life. You can add all of those supplemental coverages, but they have to be on payroll, working full time, at least 30 hours or more,
Mhm.
and they cannot be two married, cannot be married to each other.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yeah, that's a
So
little known tip.
yeah, so you think about that because often you may be paying for coverage individually, but as soon as you
Yeah.
hire that first employee, now you can explore a group plan, which gives you much richer benefits. And throughout our state, up in Cleveland and in Columbus, we've got chamber plans, the
Right.
SACA
Yes.
plans, MIWA plans, and very competitive product for small groups.
So look into your local chamber and explore those plans and group coverage. I mean, I think we tend to think of coverage meaning you have, at least 10, 20 employees, but you're saying that it could be 2 employees. So if you have a contractor that's working with you, has been doing a lot of work with you, and you're thinking about maybe bringing them on as a W-2, that could be another plus, because individual health insurance coverage for you individually as a business owner can be quite expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. Let's see some of the other things we talked about. Oh, disability,
Disability.
disability policies for individual business owners. Why do
Yes.
people need to think about that?
Well, because you can't plan sickness, right? And you cannot plan an accident. So I think the next slide may speak to disability.
Okay.
So in this statement, I think just captures it all. If you're unable to work due to an accident or sickness, how would your family get income? Or how would you, if you're single, receive income? And a lot of people have to scratch their head like, do I have adequate savings to do it? Do I want to borrow from family and friends? How do we really address this? So more people have dental insurance than they do disability insurance. Right? I think that's because we're a vain society, but I also think we don't understand the value of disability.
Mm-hmm.
About half of Americans between the ages of 35 and 65 will become disabled for 90 days or longer.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I like to tell my story that 35-year-olds have a 50-50 chance. So I was 35, became disabled with
Oh.
lymphoma, right? I'm running around, working every day, doing my thing.
Yeah.
And had some pelvic pain, went to the doctor, and they like, oh, you got a growth here that was not here a month ago when you were here for your annual checkups, right? 2 months later, surgery, the entire next year, I was off on chemotherapy treatment.
Oh my goodness.
Right? So just like that, right? One day you're running around
At 35.
At 35, single mom of 2, building a business, right? All that stuff was happening.
Yes.
But I did have disability insurance. Well, at that time, they mailed you a check, but, automatic deposit. But what that means is you're able to focus on getting well. You can recuperate, take your time getting well, because so many people say, hey, I got to hurry up and get back to work. They're concerned about how I'm going to pay the mortgage payment, how I'm going to do this, and then that adds more stress and delays their healing.
Yes.
Where this disability check is designed to pay your living expenses when you cannot. So I can't stress it enough. And I mentioned dental. People want dental insurance. Mm-hmm. The average dental plan will pay $1,000 a year in benefit. Depending on your income, disability can pay you $1,000 a week. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I mean, it's a coverage that is so underused, under enrolled in, I should say. But more and more are using it when they have it available. So I encourage people, talk to during your open enrollments that are coming up. The last quarter of the year is often when employers are reviewing benefits. Talk to the HR person, ask what that disability looks like for you, and you'll be surprised. It's not an expensive benefit, but it's a powerful benefit if you ever needed it.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Yep.
And so I think as we wrap up, you and I were having a conversation about how overwhelming it can be or challenging it can be to find an insurance professional that is thinking about you holistically and is taking a consultative approach, but also as informed. One of the things I enjoy about working with you is that you're constantly educating yourself and attending conferences and speaking at conferences and reading all of the journals and keeping up to date on the latest practices and policies. And even just with many of the quotes that you referenced today, it's clear that you know your facts. What should we be looking for when we're thinking about working with an insurance professional?
Someone who does what you just described. Okay, that they're trying to always focus on self-improvement. There's always a lot to learn in our industry. Things keep changing. And that's because society keeps changing, right? But you need to be committed and a fan of the industry, right? You need to like the work so that you can always bring your best self to your customers and your clients. I think often we see people will go to their auto and homeowners agent, right, to assist them. We love our auto and homeowner agents, but that's just business is not all of their expertise, right? And they're often shipping it out to someone else to do it. So that may not be that professional. People are buying online, and then they find out when they get a contract, they need other things that the online provider cannot or did not provide them. So I think it is getting to a professional. I think asking other business owners who they work with, what's been your experience, why you like them. I think that's how we find these professionals. And then it's tough often, I'll say it because it's not a lot of African Americans ones out there. But if that's your preference, we are out there, right? I'm a part of the National Association of African American Insurance Agents. They have chapters all around the country. So if I have a client that relocates to a state, I go out and find a professional of my organization that I could connect them to that may also be African American, right? If that's their preference, right? But it's like any other professional. You want someone who's committed to their industry and striving to always be better and provide the best to their clients. And, I'm fortunate, I feel, and I'm really blessed that we see that longevity of our clients. We're now working with second generation, where now we've got the adult children, where we're providing planning and insurance for. So I just always said, I'm going to do a good job because I'm going to come back and maybe sell you something else. Right. I want to do a good job for you because I'm coming back. Right.
Yeah.
I can't afford to be laxed and, not do well. And all we have is our name and our brand. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, that's what those old entrepreneurs taught. Your word is your bond. Do what you say and try to be excellent at what you do.
Love it. Thank you. Well, I'm going to, we have a couple of questions, but I'm going to move to your slide because this slide is, okay. Open enrollment. We need to give
just quick because we want to respond to the questions.
Okay.
Healthcare open enrollment is coming up November 1st. This is the marketplace in Ohio, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. All those terms mean the same thing. So this is an opportunity where people who don't have health insurance can enroll on a health insurance plans. Over the years, the plans ACA has been out 10 years now, right? So there have been a lot of improvements
Okay.
to the plans. But the first bullet there, you can work with an agent to help you make selection and enroll. You also can do it yourself, right? By going just directly to the marketplace. There is no cost to have an agent do it. So agents do medical like your agent would do your car insurance.
I
Right?
recommend having an agent.
We do too.
Yeah.
But a lot of people like self-service.
There's a lot to consider, that there's a lot of things you don't know that you don't know when it comes to you selecting these plans.
It is. So, but I just wanted to make people aware that open enrollment is happening. If you don't have health insurance, I encourage you to get a quote, because there's plans based on income, less people paying less than $20, $50 a month. One thing I would mention for self-employed people, if they're looking at your net income to determine what your subsidies or discounts will be. So just be mindful of that. If you go out and explore your own, always use your net income number. But rich plans, mental health, substance abuse is on all the plans. Preventive health is on all the plans. So
thank you.
We can get to the questions. Yeah, that's just my closing slide talking about our firm.
Okay, good. So someone wanted to know, how did they reach you? But before we go through this, someone had a question about disability. Does disability coverage cover severe COVID?
Yes, it does. It's because COVID is a sickness, right? So it pays for accident or sickness. It also pays for maternity, right? If you're off on maternity leave. So maternity is viewed as a sickness from a disability standpoint. So yes, these people who were off for a long time because of COVID,
right?
I mean, if they had disability insurance, it would have responded.
Okay, thank you. And then my final question before we wrap up is, for those that are still working, but either have a part-time business or are considering transferring to full-time business, what are some things they can do now to position themselves for affordable insurance premiums, or just to protect themselves while they have current income and or maybe still, several years away from retiring? What are some things they should be considering or doing?
Sure. So many employer groups offer plans that are portable. And that means simply that you could take them with you. Right?
Okay.
So because they're group plans, they're going to be less expensive often than buying a personal or individual plan. And if it's portable, you can keep it when you leave and continue to pay the premiums. So I would encourage that. And on the life insurance, disability policies, those are based on age. So the younger you are, the less expensive those policies will be. I mean, you think as you get older, there's often, maybe some health issues that may cause premiums to be higher or decline, right? For coverage.
Yes.
So I would encourage the younger you are to establish good, solid programs that you can carry into the future. Retirees and people approaching retiring, over 55, over 60, start to look at those retirement plans early, right? The sooner you are, the sooner the better, right? It takes a lot to retire, right? And as I said, the older you become, these products become more expensive. What I'm seeing often is when people are retiring and leaving a job, the only life insurance they had was through their employer.
Exactly.
Now they're 60, 62, 65, 70.
Yeah.
Those premiums are, almost cost prohibitive. And there's often health issues that now come into play.
Yeah.
So you want to prepare, you should have a policy outside of work, because that you own and control.
Absolutely.
And again, if you're younger, it's going to cost less to do it. But I think we need to pay attention to our financial affairs. There was a saying early in my career, I learned that we spend more time planning our vacations than we do our financial lives.
Wow.
So, I mean, if we spent equal amount of time, we would be in a lot better shape, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Take a look, work with a professional. So we're open to assist. The slide you're looking at just tells the services that we offer, and then my contact information is there.
Well, Sandra, thank you so much. This has been so helpful. I continue to learn from you. I hope that those that are watching live will also feel the same, and those that may be watching the recorded version of this, you have Sandra's information. She, as we can see, insurance, there's so much more to insurance professionals, I would say professionals opposed to agent, than we know. My takeaway from doing this work is that as when you're thinking about building your financial services team, it should be, a solid team of bankers. It should be a great, very business oriented CPA, a solid attorney, and your insurance professional should be right there in terms of a member of your team. And ideally, if they are kind of working together, because they each touch on different aspects of your finances, that's even better. So please make sure that you factor in insurance as you're building out your business plans and growth projections, and then follow Sandra on LinkedIn. There's also a Facebook page for DN Insurance, and the website, dninsurance.com. So thank you so much, Sandra, for spending your time with us today. And thank you, everyone that joined. Have a fantastic day. Okay, bye.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Okay.